I really got to fix that intro. I found my clip for the world that spins around and says answers in atheism. I gotta patch it on there, but I apologize.
Oh yeah, we
And
haven't seen that one in a while.
yeah, no. Yeah, because I don't know. I got lost when I went from StreamYard to Restream. Anyway, so I sent this video to you. Okay, there's a whole thing going on about the end of space time, right? And
Okay.
legitimate physicists are talking about this, about new ways to view the universe that where basically they take out space time in a unique way.
Okay, so we're not talking about like the literal end of space-time. We're talking
No,
about
no, no.
space-time. The end of that is
Yeah,
a
it's
unique concept.
yeah, you could call it an illusion, but that's problematic because it's really there. I mean, it really behaves that way. And of
Yeah.
course, we experience everything that way. But they're talking about how it falls out of some larger mathematical structures having to do with quantum mechanics,
Yeah.
Feynman
Nice. Yeah.
diagrams, and they found new fields of math and de Sitter spaces. The idea of holograms and all that. But
Okay.
anyway, so there are legitimate physicists that are working on what is like, okay, what came before the Big Bang. Uh,
Right.
Physicists know that it's bullshit to put it that way. But what they're talking about is uh, oh, what the hell's the word I'm trying to think of? Basically, a larger structure, that our cosmology, our universe is a part of. That there's a larger structure, and these larger structures project space and time in unique ways, and they're
Hmm.
getting at the mathematics behind that. And this guy, I thought, okay, this. I first thought woohead, right? But he's not. He knows what the hell he's talking about. He's really cool.
So this is all holographic universe kind of ideas.
Kind of, yeah, but he's not really saying that. He's not saying he's saying that the mathematics that we are going to understand this, oh, I keep wanting to say rubric. Okay, this larger rubric that basically we're going to have to get to if we answer questions about the early, the Big Bang, why it happened, or why there is a Big Bang, why there's expansion and all that.
I
And
want to make a Clockwork Orange joke for some reason, but I'm not going to.
Kubrick, rubric. I was
Yeah.
going to say Kubrick, right? Yeah,
Stanley J. Rubric,
yeah, Stanley J. Kubrick.
inventor of the Rubik's Cube.
Anyway,
I'm
and
done. I'm stupid.
dark matter and dark energy and all of that, I think, are going to be figured out when they go to this larger system that, basically the mathematics. And the only way we're going to get to it is with mathematics. We might, it's very difficult to get to it empirically. So it's going to be
Yeah.
like a pure math game. Excuse me, hang on a second.
I think it probably will be mathematical in some respects, but I think ultimately it should rely on empirical evidence because that
Yeah,
is what
I
science is
think
based on.
the empirical
Yeah,
part,
it's very
part
difficult.
about it is going to be explaining dark matter and dark energy and why we've got these kind of like kinks in our physics right now, right? Dark matter and dark energy are kind of a kink in the system
Yeah.
that we arrived at from empirical measurement, right? From data.
We just don't know what they are,
We don't
basically.
know what they are, and we're going to be able to figure out what they are, but we got to step outside of our own
Yeah.
universe and get into the greater structure of the cosmos, and that's going to tell us things like are there other universes, basically, and stuff like that. But when you think about other universes without space time, So suppose we were next to another universe, right? All the universes that exist would be just as next to us because there is no space-time, right? So there would be no metric of distance to these other universes. So they're all touching in essence, but they're not even touching because even that is a space-time concept. So
Right.
what they're doing is they're trying to find mathematics that gets them outside of this space-time thinking. And
It's a lot of out of the box thinking right now.
Right.
Maybe that is what we need.
yeah, and the Kalam people, they want to say, oh, what came, everything is caused, therefore the universe had to be caused. Well,
Yeah.
cause is a time concept. It's a juxtaposition in time of two things, right? That kind of thinking is not appropriate when you're trying to figure out what happened or what basically what the Big Bang is, what this expansion is, and what's happening with us right now. So, and this guy says he really validates a lot of the what I thought were crackpot ideas that I came up with because I'm not a physicist, but he validates a lot of it. But I'm just going to play a few clips by him, and then we'll get on.
Other stuff. Yeah.
When I'm in the genetics, you're in the physics, and when I'm in what the Andrew, get on the same page.
It's like it's
maybe
like polar
we just
opposites.
complement each other.
Yeah, you're finding balance in the force.
Anyway, let's see what he has to say here. I'm not sure why I clipped what I clipped, but I clipped stuff.
In this talk, this is supposed to be a magnifying glass, okay? But let's say I'm going to use this magnifying glass to try to look at some small region of space and time, just to see what's there, just in the vacuum. Now, because of quantum mechanics and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, in order to look at shorter and shorter distances, literally to look, I'd have to look at it with light with shorter and shorter wavelengths. That would have higher and higher frequencies. And in quantum mechanics, that would tell us that the minimum energy that I would need to probe very short distances has got to actually get larger and larger. So in order to probe shorter and shorter distances, we need to put more and more energy into a smaller and smaller region of space. That's the explanation for the huge irony why gigantic particle accelerators like the Large Hadron Collider, which are 27 kilometers around, are what we have to use to study nature at the tiniest distances we've ever probed. We need the biggest machine to probe the tiniest distances ever, precisely because of this business about the uncertainty principle. But anyway, in a world without gravity and infinite funds, you just ask governments for more and more and more money, and you can probe arbitrarily short distances by going to arbitrarily high energies. But in the actual world, we have gravity, and something very bad happens at some point. You put so much energy into such a tiny region of space that Einstein tells us it equals mc squared. So it's like putting an enormous amount of mass into a tiny region of space. And you know what happens when you put a huge amount of mass into a tiny region of space? You collapse the region you're looking at into a black hole, and no information can possibly get out of it.
Okay. So I thought that was kind of a wonderful explanation of the Large Hadron Collider and why we have to have bigger and bigger colliders in order to look at smaller and smaller pieces of space. And I thought he put it very well. So
yeah, we just need to. Well, there's a. I think it's like in order to probe energies that would have been equivalent to what was around during the so-called inflationary epoch or even earlier, you'd basically need a particle collider the size of the planet or like the solar system. So it is kind of difficult to probe those higher and higher energies.
Yeah, and then all we'd end up with is a black hole, and we couldn't get anything out of it anyway. Yeah, so we're kind of fucked. So mathematics, but anyway, I got another.
These questions become important. Well, there's a few obvious places where this kind of question becomes important. For example, we know the universe is expanding, so if we run the picture of the expanding universe back in time, it's contracting, getting hotter and hotter, denser and denser. And there's the moment that we colloquially refer to as the Big Bang, where the curvatures are of the universe and the temperatures and everything is at this ridiculous scale we're just talking about on the previous slide. Now, sometimes people ask what happened at the Big Bang or before the Big Bang, and we don't know, because what's going on is that the whole notion of before is breaking down. The whole notion of time is breaking down around the Big Bang. So it's not even clear if the words make sense, what happened before. Similar things happen if you throw yourself into a black hole. If you cross the event horizon of a black hole, then what happens inside isn't like you hit a point that's sitting there, but it's like being on the inside of a collapsing universe, and it's like running this picture of the expanding universe in reverse, and you get sort of crunched in your future at some point. Again, we don't know what happens there.
Anyway, that is a cool answer to people that start asking what's before the Big Bang, the way he put it.
Well, yeah, because our general picture of space-time at this point, including concepts of time, is general relativity, and we know that general relativity breaks down at that point because it starts giving nonsensical answers like infinity.
Yep.
And we obviously know that's incomplete because general relativity is not quantum mechanical.
Yeah.
And also, I like his description of why things fall into a black hole there, because like you said, it's not really the gravity is pulling you there. Like it's not like some people compare it to like a river of water, and you're just pulled along with it eventually, like a waterfall. That isn't really what's happening. Like it's not a spatial pull. Basically, it's that in a sense, time and space kind of flip because of the curvature is so extreme, and so basically heading in to the singularity of the black hole is as inevitable as moving toward the future, and obviously none of us can go back into the past. So that's the it's crazy to think of it like that, but that's kind of what's really going on there.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay, another clip.
Mind blowing.
There's an effective description of what's going on that makes it look as if there's an interior, with space in the interior, gravity in the interior, even strings in the interior. But fundamentally, there's just sort of particles interacting very, very strongly on the walls.
He's talking about de Sitter space. Basically, like in the holographic universe, that there's these particles on this wall of this some kind of mathematical structure, right?
Yeah,
and they
hologram.
project space and time, and he kind of explains it really well.
So this is a first example where out of a quantum mechanical system with very, very strong interactions with particles emerges space and gravity in the interior. And there's the whole general idea is known as holography. It's something like the colloquial picture of a hologram, which is a fundamentally two-dimensional thing, but which encodes three-dimensional information. And there's many aspects of this dictionary. I'll just mention one of them, one of the most basic ones. If someone told you, look, this interior space here really doesn't exist, everything is sort of living on a screen out there, you would say, what the heck are you talking about? I could have this purple ball and the green ball, and one of them is here and the other one's further out. So what could it possibly mean that they're in different positions here if this space isn't really there? And the answer is that the purple dot in this description is described by some kind of fuzz of energy of some size in the wall description. And as you move the purple dot to the green dot, that corresponds to changing the size of the ball. So
Isn't that cool? The way he explained that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that explains the holographic universe. And let's see, where am I at here? I'm at 1429, 1403, okay, 1504. Let's see what it says here.
Oh, this is Max Planck Institute.
Live forever.
What's that?
I said, or I was just looking at the channel. It's the Max Planck Institute. That's cool.
For physics.
Yeah,
for
physics.
Anyway.
Into the future. And most of the interesting questions about our universe, most of the literally existential questions about our universe are cosmological ones. They have to do with the fact that our universe was born at some point. We'd like to know how our universe was born, what it means that our universe was born. We want to know something about the fate of the universe in the future. All of these questions involve the notion of time in a crucial way. And I probably don't have time to talk about this in a detail, but there are some questions about the birth of the universe at the Big Bang that are mysterious. There is a whole Pandora's box of questions that perhaps in a question session I'll say something more about if people ask, about something that astronomers discovered in the late 1990s, that the universe is not only expanding, but the rate at which it's expanding is accelerating. It's doubling in size at a constant rate every 10 billion years or so. And this fact that the universe is accelerating opens a huge number of conceptual mysteries on us in physics. And all of these ideas, both the notion of time plays a really crucial role, and for a variety of reasons, it looks like, especially if the notion of time goes away, somehow a lot has to change about our understanding in physics, but especially the things that are crucially tied into to our descriptions of quantum mechanics also have to be modified in some way.
Okay. So there's, he shows like, when you do a space-time calculation of for a collision of some particles, he shows this picture, I can't remember, right here. You end up doing this algebra, right? That's all algebra, and there are 100 more pages. Yeah, right. Okay, when they get rid of space-time and they use this different way of calculating with permutations and combinations, combinatorial mathematics, right? They end up reducing that down to like a couple of terms. It becomes extremely simplified, and there's this symmetry. So all of a sudden, permutations, combinatorics, and discrete mathematics is becoming important in physics, and reducing these quantum mechanical equations down to something a lot simpler. And he explains it a little further on. Let's see. I'm going to abbreviate some of this so we don't go too far.
Sure.
Where are we? 16? Is there a deeper? Yeah. Okay. He talks about the deeper structure underlying space-time and quantum mechanics, and if so, must involve new physical and mathematical ideas. So let's just.
We're led to ask this question then: is there some deeper structure underlying space-time and quantum mechanics? And if so, it's clear that it must involve new physical and mathematical ideas. We can take some inspiration for what this might look like. So I hope it's clear this is a huge challenge. Okay, we're trying to understand what replaces space-time, maybe even what extends our notions of quantum mechanics. This is one of those questions that it sounds like a fascinating question to sort of think about, but not to get up in the morning and work on. And one of the, I think, most remarkable things about the period in the development of our field that we're in is that we're essentially at a point that you can get up in the morning and work on problems like this.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Anyway, even though I'm a high school dropout and a crackhead, I got to tell you, I've been talking about this stuff for 20 years. And this is very validating, this outer mathematics, basically. And I first got the idea in 1994 while I was standing in front of the toilet. I won't tell you what I was doing. And looking at I was looking at a complex pattern on some wallpaper. And I came up with this intuition about stuff and stuff not, and projecting dimensions and projecting all of space-time and matter onto this, this universe that we have. And that's kind of where I started talking about it. So back to 1994. Did you exist in 1994?
Nope.
There you go. Before you existed, I was talking about this stuff. So
I
there
guess.
you go. That's pretty validating, don't you think? I don't know.
I mean, obviously the details are more complex, but yeah, I think these ideas have been running around for quite some time now. We're just trying to figure out the nitty gritty of it. We're trying to wrap it all together.
Yeah. I'm trying to
And
get
like
to the
I
point
said,
where
it's
he
going to
says-
be kind of difficult to test which ideas are probably more accurate than others, given the limited data we have at the moment.
Yeah. He shows the Feynman diagrams, and it's really wonderful how this talk
Point of view
comes
and
around.
angle on it that's been pursued over the past decade or so, that has begun to see the emergence of new structures in mathematics that seem to be deeply connected to these very basic physical questions. Again, I want to stress these things, they're not just relevant to the Large Hadron Collider, right? They happen all the time in the world around us when you look out the window, right? Essentially, everything that happens in the world is a concatenation over and over again of these basic elementary scattering processes happening over and over and over. So it's the most basic process in nature, and it's astonishing that the most basic process in nature seems to be governed by ridiculously complicated answers, which, however, have incredible simplicity and hidden structures underneath them. And what is it that makes it look complicated? Forcing it to look like it respects quantum mechanics and space-time. So what are we invited to do? Find some way of thinking about what the objects are from a different point of view.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You gotta admit. Very fascinating. 2604. I guess I can roll it forward.
So clearly, as I mentioned, there have to be some new physical and mathematical ideas involved, and the mathematical structures that are emerging are in very sort of interesting parts of mathematics that have not typically had any connection with physics. Never mind connection with physics at such a basic level in areas like combinatorics, number theory, and various aspects of algebraic geometry. And in various concrete examples, we can begin to see how the rules of space-time and quantum mechanics can actually come out of some more primitive structures. And what I'm, at least my own point of view about what's going on is that the string theorists have started telling us 20 years ago and are continuing to intensively study the sort of fascinating fact that quantum mechanical systems can in some cases give us space emergent from the strong quantum mechanical interactions of particles. But my own suspicion is that further in the future, we need to instead be looking like something like this. You see here, there's an asymmetry. Quantum mechanics is sort of on top, is king, and space and gravity and so on emerge from it. Whereas, at least my own thought is that there are some more abstract set of ideas and that we'll see quantum mechanics and space-time, not just emergent space, but space-time emerge together, joined at the hip inexorably. And one of the sociologically interesting things...
It's kind of...
I wonder if when he's talking about like emergent space there, if he's talking about like Hilbert space or just a different concept. Wish I could.
I don't
clarify
know.
that.
The part about it emerging from quantum mechanics probably relates to Hilbert space, right?
Yeah.
Not that.
Yeah, I'm just curious what he means by that specifically. But
yeah. But there's
You're
let's
getting
say I
some
got
validation here, Mike.
Yeah. Oh, where?
I think
look-
he's
look
trying
at
to do a parody
Nice.
on Great
Thank you.
Scott from the
Oh,
Back to the
great, Mike.
Future.
Oh, it's a great mic. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I thought YouTube Punk was giving.
At least
you
that's
some
how
validation.
I am interpreting it.
Well, no, he's saying it's not great, Scott. It's great, Mike. Fuck you, Scott. Okay. Anyway, I just got a few more bookmarks here, and I want to kind of bring this together.
We can talk about the interactions between gluons,
Okay.
and the very,
Now
very...
you're showing like Feynman diagrams, right? When you collide particles together, you use those Feynman diagrams. Where you have all different paths.
Not just when you're colliding particles, like when they're interacting with each other too. But yeah, they're pretty useful.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's talking
The
about
simplest
those.
interaction you could think of is when three gluons meet at a point in space-time. Not really two, because that just is a gluon moving on the straight line. Okay, so that's no interaction at all. But the simplest interaction that we can have is three gluons meeting at a point in space-time. Now, I didn't tell you, but the gluons also are sort of spinning particles, so they're moving along at the speed of light. But they're either spinning in the direction of motion or opposite to the direction
Why
Oh,
we
of motion.
model
So
them
that's
as
the puck.
corkscrews.
And it turns out that
Yeah.
while those other amplitudes with 2 to 4 gluons and so on are very complicated, these very simplest amplitudes are incredibly simple. Again, I'm not explaining what these symbols mean, but just so you see that there's some extremely simple
Look like Brock,
thing
yeah.
that goes into the very basic, most basic interactions that we were talking about. So where do all the complicated things happen? All the complicated things happen when we draw these pictures of Feynman. And in these pictures, in all this stuff that's going on in the inside, the particles that are moving around on the inside there, they're not real. they're what we call virtual particles. Even if you read sort of popular descriptions of physics, they're called virtual. And that's because they don't actually propagate a long place from one place to the other. In principle, from infinity on one side to infinity on...
Do you want to comment?
Nope, that sounds about right to me. I don't know why you're asking me to comment when he's a physicist here. But.
Oh no, you made a noise. I thought you were starting to say something. So.
Infinity on the other. They propagate over finite distances. They're produced and absorbed. They're not real particles. They're sort of they're, as their name suggests, they're a convenient fiction that we introduce as sort of theoretical physicists to give a rational description of what happened inside here. But you know, an experimentalist who just throws the particles in and sees them come out, they don't see all this stuff happen. It's a theorist who tells them, no, what's going on in there is you made these virtual particles and you sum over all these ways that are happening. And in fact, it's exactly the existence of these virtual particles that's the origin of all this horrible complexity in these calculations. These sort of hundreds of pages of algebra are a consequence of demanding and thinking that all these...
So, something that this shows you here is that the virtual particles are mathematical in nature. It isn't like... you can't say they're not real because the math really happens and it really works that way and it explains it.
Yeah, the math works.
Yeah,
you can't make the math work without incorporating these virtual particles.
Set up. Yeah. Anyway, let's see if do I have to jockey ahead here? I don't want to miss anything because I got 27. So I got about I only got about a minute left. So let's go.
Virtual particles are in there. So there's something else that you could do. You could go back and say, forget about virtual particles. The physical idea is we're going to eliminate virtual particles. On the other hand, we want to somehow keep the idea that we're going to build more complicated interactions by piecing together simpler ones. But what we could do is take these exactly physical processes where every particle there is a physical particle, not a virtual particle, and we could see what happens when we glue them together. So these pictures are not Feynman's pictures. Everything here would correspond to sort of a non-virtual gluon. But we can just experiment and see what happens when we glue these building blocks together. And then we discover some very interesting things. So for instance, if you're talking about a process with 2 gluons in and 3 out, this single picture where what you're gluing together are the real processes, that actually gives you the total answer for the process with 2 gluons in and 3 gluons out. That single picture where everything here is physical, not virtual, this single picture is what we get instead of the 30 pages of algebra. If we do the 2 in, 4 out, that's a little more complicated, but it's this funny picture plus 2 more that look just like it, just sort of cycling these indices forward by 2. So it's 3 terms that add up to the correct answer instead of 100 pages of algebra. So that's very interesting, that once we decide, we banish this notion of, the notion of virtual particle.
Okay, let me go ahead a little bit here. Let's see where he gets combinatorics. Okay, so he starts talking about permutations, right? Like a permutation, you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you permute it to basically it'd be 3, 5. I'm going to assume everybody knows what a permutation is.
It's all the possible combinations given a possible set of
except
values.
they call them permutations because you're permuting it. You're just changing places. So they start with something simple like
this
that.
This way of graphically representing a permutation also represents a picture of a scattering process in 1 dimension of space and 1 dimension of time. And in fact, there's a very beautiful and by now classic story in mathematical physics that connects permutations to scattering in 1 dimension of space in this way. But this is clearly very special, 1 dimension of space. We don't live in 1 dimension of space. And it's very important that the basic scattering processes here involve 2 particles in and 2 particles out. There's no creation or destruction of particles. And that's the most fundamental thing that we saw before. It was the basic interactions where 3 gluons meeting at a point. So 2 can create 1 or 1 can create 2. Okay, so, all right, but maybe around 15 years ago now, 17 years ago, mathematicians discovered another graphical way of presenting permutations. Okay? And it goes like this. You draw, if you want to, let's say, permute 1 to 3, 2 to 1, and 3 to 2, you don't draw 1, 2, 3 down here and 1, 2, 3 up there. You draw them around a big circle, and you put a little black dot in the middle. And the rule is, to see what happens, is you walk in to see where does like 1 go. You walk in from 1, and if you hit a black vertex, you make a right turn. Okay? So you see, if you do that, in this example, you get 1 to 3, 2 to 1, 3 to 2. You could get the opposite way to do the permutation by using a white vertex. Okay? And so then I can now glue them together in more interesting ways. And if you just follow your nose, left, right, as you hit white and black vertices, this also produces a permutation, 1 to 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 1, 4 to 2, and so on. Now, what's remarkable is that every permutation can be represented like this. Okay? So there is a reason, purely within combinatorics, another graphical way of representing the most basic steps.
So this is like an idea from discrete mathematics and a different way of representing permutations that ends up looking weirdly like these collision diagrams, right? And he goes a little bit further here where he talks about the, let's see. Okay, well, I guess I went too far, didn't I? Oh, shit. Wow.
Scattering process imaginable, just permuting things. There's a graphical way of representing it by exactly the kind of pictures that we saw were associated with the most basic physical processes that we were talking about. Okay? So that just gives you a flavor of why combinatorics has to do with this subject. And I don't have any time to talk about the rest of the story in detail, but just...
Have you heard of an amplitude-hedron? Amplitude-hedron?
I don't think so.
Andrew?
I've never heard of anything like that.
Anyway, these things have a volume, and there's like, and then there's a different way. Let me see if I can go ahead here. I don't want to bore everybody, but
in the oracle interpretation, but the full volume does, and in a very precise sense, the rules of space-time and quantum mechanics arise as derivative notions from this more abstract mathematical structure.
That's
so
awesome.
That's really all I wanted to.
Okay. Anyway, I think he goes to questions, and it's just really fascinating that that they're doing this stuff and that they're looking at this outer thing around the cosmos, and that's what. When I run into a pre-supper or this Kalam cosmological argument, I just want to grab them by the collar and put their nose in this shit and say, look, if you want to be really serious about this stuff, you're not going to talk about it in terms of a billiard ball knocking over another billiard ball or some simple analogy. You've got to step out mathematically into a very abstract region that you are not going to find intuitively comfortable.
Yeah,
right?
they presuppose an out-of-date paradigm for reality and for physics.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, they're thinking too simply, and but now what he's saying is that with these higher levels of mathematics, all of that complexity starts to disappear. And he says it very beautifully. I've linked this video in the description. Everybody should listen to this man and try to follow him, because he does not get as deep as you think he does. It's fairly easy to follow. And he gives you the idea that, there are that all of these structures, these bizarre abstract mathematical structures, project down into what is happening to us, why we are the organisms we are on the world we're in the solar system, in the galaxy, in the cosmos. And it's really an exceptional thing to meditate on. Anyway, I'm done with my rant.
Okay, the description of that Max Planck Institute video that we just saw references a channel called Videos from IAS. Is that his channel? Are we going to see more of his stuff?
Did you say that?
Okay, if you go to that Nima Arkani, the End of Space-Time video link, which is a Max Planck Institute channel video, because basically what we just watched belongs to the Max Planck Institute. it says,
So if I go to the website,
yeah, and then in the description it says that Nima Hamed is a theoretical physicist from the
Phenomenon
videos
for
from IAS. Because you said to watch more of him, but I'm just trying to figure out where we go to watch more of him.
yeah, I would like to know, but I'm not seeing it in the description, Scott.
Here, let me give you the link to it, to what I'm
Yeah,
seeing.
thank you. Okay. Yeah, because I do want to watch more from him.
Okay, there we go. I'm just wondering if this is where we go.
Okay,
You
let's
seem
take
kind of
look.
like a nervous speaker, in my opinion, but maybe that's
Maybe out of
Yeah,
shape.
well, his brain is running at about 50,000 miles an hour. So Institute for Advanced Study. Okay, I've got it up, and I'm not showing my camera. Come on,
Looks like
Restream.
him
Quit
in the
putting stuff
video
in.
that workshop shop day. I don't know. Is that him? But anyway,
I don't
yeah,
know.
I just figured, well, public speaking, moving around and talking, you can get out of breath if you're not used to walking a lot.
Yeah, well, he was excited. You could tell he was excited by this stuff. So,
Well,
so
yeah,
this is Institute for Advanced Study. Yeah,
yeah, I guess
I'll
that
put that
is.
in the description. Okay, I'll put it in the description, and yeah. Anyway, opens the mind up a little bit.
Yeah, that
Cool.
was, like I said, high level stuff, but definitely interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
It's unintuitive concepts. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, guys, we have a question from the side chat that I think should be answered. Should be. If space is expanding,
that's the whole
comparing it to balloon, what is space expanding into? Shall we?
Yeah, no, it's okay. If you think about a balloon, okay, you got to quit thinking about it expanding into something. It's just expanding, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
There is
in a
nothing it's
sense, it's
expanding into.
really kind of, it's expanding into itself in a sense, because what we mean by expansion is that distance between any 2 points gravitationally bound to each other is getting larger. So it doesn't really matter to imagine. It's kind of silly to. It's not silly because it's an analogy, but where the analogy breaks down, because it's not literally space expanding into a pre-existing space. It's just the space is getting larger, and it's really hard to describe that without going into the mix of it and like intrinsic curve thing. But yeah, that's why we kind of have to use these, even though they break down at some point.
Yeah, and that's
know
where
if
it
that helps,
gets
but
really weird. Where the hell?
Well,
where the hell is my
at least we can tell that you stimulated thought. There we go. There's the guy thinking. YouTube Punk
Stimulated
is
thought.
thinking.
Yeah, the thing that's you got to think about. If there's something like, okay, we got the universe here, right? We're the universe right here, this dot. Okay. Now, if there are other things like us, other universes like us, and they're outside here, right? You might think that, oh, well, this one will be further away. No, that's not the case, because there is no space-time in that region. All of these things are exactly in the same spot, right? So to go from one
a
to
higher
another,
construct.
right? There's nothing in between them, and so the balloon is expanding, but it's not expanding into anything, and that is where it gets. That's where, because we are space-time creatures, and we interact. We're in relation. Our nervous system, our brains are in relation to this space-time portrayal of what is really going on at our level. We are never going to intuitively imagine. We might be able to stretch our minds a little bit and come up with analogies, but it's going to be very difficult. So, very best thing is to think about flatland. Like if you were a thing that existed on a two-dimensional paper, right, and you had no up, right? So there is no up for the balloon. There is no north of the North Pole for the balloon to expand into. And that's very fascinating. But oh, I get excited about this stuff too. I kind of think it's exciting. But I
Yeah,
got
Gives you
I
something
mean,
to think about while
think-
you're outdoors pondering the universe.
but
Well,
I give my
like I said, need to. Sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
All right.
I quit.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you need to, like I said, even go to a higher dimensional way of thinking about it. At least for this exercise. Like you for example, the 2-dimensional balloon expanding into existing 3-dimensional space. Like, you don't really need to think of it like that. I think a better analogy, if anything, although it does have to go down another dimension from dimensions all the way down to 1 dimension, would be a rubber band with dots on it.
Yeah.
Kind of demonstrates concept behind it, with like Hubble's law, and how more distant parts of time move apart from one another at a greater rate because there's more space. So it's kind of, yeah. I said I don't know if this is really, like, it is difficult to wrap your mind around, because we're, like you said, is in space-time. We can't really imagine space-time changing in that sort of way, and that's why kind of the only way to understand it is through mathematics. That's not very
Yeah, and the upshot is
appeals
that
to many people.
when they come at you with the Kalam cosmological argument and say that everything had a cause, tell them no, it's a little more complex than that, and your simplistic thinking is never going to wrap your head around it if you continue on this avenue where you start thinking about billiard balls and one thing causing another. You got to get out of that box. So tell them to get the fuck out of the box. Forget the Kalam cosmological argument. It doesn't prove God. It's just, forget it. Anyway. So
The universe
but
is,
I can't
as has been said, the universe is under no obligation to be intuitive to you to make sense.
Right. Yeah. Yep, but I had decided to devote my life to molecular biology and genetics. So, Andrew, cytochrome C, which you came here to talk about. Do you have a presentation for us? Or
Oh no, I
Did you
just
just
want to talk about it randomly. Before
Rant.
I get into that,
Yeah.
we were talking about the SFT stream earlier about the stuff. I think a really good part of that, and maybe we should go over it at some point, because a very spicy but interesting conversation was the part with Erica and she limestone formation.
Oh,
And of course, at the end of it, Sam kind of redefined living, jumped in and started going all priest up and, oh, I'm a Christian, I just love you, but I don't want you to go to hell. So, that it kind of went that way, but at least it was a pretty interesting back and forth.
When was this discussion?
Like a few days ago, I think
okay.
it was.
I mean,
like
it
for-
is so ironic that Sam is talking about geology because he is a box of rocks.
Yeah.
Yep, completely. Okay, standing.
Yeah,
in
and
poop.
YouTube Punk, I'm sorry I couldn't help more with that question. Like I said, it is very counter, and without I might be able to do better, but even then, it's still like to give an example, math about like all this curvature stuff. You'd think intuitively, I feel like you'd think intuitively that a cylinder is curved, right? But that's what you mean by curvature there. It's extrinsically curved, but it's intrinsically flat, right? As compared to something like a sphere, which is both extrinsically and intrinsically curved. So yeah, it's very complex, very fast, and of course
So
general
Standing in
relativity,
Poop
which
has
includes sorry, go ahead.
Standing in Poop has 10 upcoming videos under his live session. 10.
Oh wow,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Is it
how
this
many
one?
subscribers does he have now?
Oh, I don't know. He
Is it like
certainly
19,000 or something?
I would say to YouTube Punk real quick,
20,
keep searching.
20.4.
Yeah,
20.4.
what's got some?
Okay, is it ordering of the fossil record open mic debate?
Yeah,
Is it
that's
that
the
one?
one.
Okay, got it.
TRock basically
that's-
gave a very convoluted, I must say, explanation of how you get that ordering and how it happened. And I think if I did his explanation correctly, I think he said like continents are literally like floating on water because he said water is incompressible and they're supported by pillars, which didn't really make sense to me because the continent's granite. And they
He's
like
thinking about like a bridge or something or whatever.
yeah,
Floating on
they
water?
slid into that liquid water, and that's what caused the upwelling. Like I said, it was very weird, vague. But
Okay. TRock.
whatever.
So that was TRock that believes that.
Yeah, that's the initial the first hour or so that
Could we call him
Discussion.
T-Box a Rock? T-Box a Rock?
I was Sam, but like I think
Okay.
he's not the geology expert they make him out to be either. So
Yeah.
I think he's an engineer, or he claims to be like have a background in engineering. But
Yeah, so I got this up. So there you are, Andrew. You do come in.
like I said, I don't think I did too well. I did stutter a lot of my thoughts there, but
Interesting.
yeah, Don Eric licked it pretty good.
You've got a hostile bunch around you.
I watched a
Jackson
video
Rowe,
yesterday.
Who is Jackson
watched
Rowe? Is he on the science side of things, or is he on the?
Yeah, he is.
He's like
Well, good.
debating Hogan and whatnot.
Yeah, he loves to be on standing in that Standing for Truth group and talk.
Is this in the description?
What's that?
Is this in the
This
description?
video? Yeah, I put it
Yeah.
in the description. So
It is now.
I watched a video yesterday about some limestone deposits on the shore of this lake. I think in Nevada. Yeah, I think it's in Nevada.
Cool.
It's like I think it's the second hugest, really huge lake, and it used to be a gigantic lake, even bigger. You know, just went all the way across Nevada, and it is limestone deposits that he had eroded away, where limestone had deposited on wells or springs. You know, these little springs popping up underneath a lake, and there were limestone like big tubes that were probably 2 or 3 feet across that had deposited. Okay, so under the flood geology, how in the fuck does that happen? How does limestone, and of course they'll point to this cave where, limestone is forming very rapidly, or whatever in the hell they have in caves.
Rapid in like
in order to,
relative terms, like it still takes a really long time for it all to accumulate. But yeah.
Yeah, in order for that to happen, you would have to have like maximum saturation, of calcium carbonate in the water. And how in the hell did the entire ocean have that much calcium carbonate in it?
Yeah.
That it created these things that rapidly within a year, and then somehow the flood eroded all the area around the bottom of the lake, and left just the flat part of the lake and these things sticking up, and then they fell over, and then they cracked, and then they weathered for what appears to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. How in the hell do they put that together? I mean, if they're not staring at the Grand Canyon, would creationists think the Grand Canyon is the only place you find rocks on the Earth, right? And they got their whole story built around that. There are no other rocks. But if you go anywhere else and you look at rock formations and you look at these extrusions and these fault lines, where faults that one huge mountain is slipped against another, and it's all stratified and deposited. How in the hell do they imagine that happened in a big swishy flood? That swished around for what, 3 months?
Yeah, like Steve Bauman, who is a geologist, does, like he said, they think in terms of layer cake geology, and that's probably because they only focus on. So
yeah,
that's another interesting point you brought up, which was kind of the solubility issue. Like you said, the ocean, or just water in general, or be saturated with so much calcium carbonate before it precipitates out, but that precipitation is, and so it's going to be limited by all those factors. So really speed up the process beyond a certain point is three, essentially.
Yeah, and the saturated water has to wash across the rock, and it takes time for those bonds to form, and they form one molecule at a time. And that's all you get. And if you got a lot of swishing water, you got a little bit of a problem there. It's more likely to deposit in still water. And I don't know what. The thing is that when they get to it, they just say, "Oh, Bible."
Yeah, pretty
I'm
much.
going to think Bible first, and I'm going to take a
their
shortcut.
ultimate foundation.
Yeah, the ultimate foundation. So, did you have a part in here where you knew that you talked about cytochrome? Was it cytochrome C that you talked about here?
Yeah, this is a very long video.
I didn't talk about it in this discussion. Just geology fossils. I just want
Scott, what'd you say?
to mention it's like I said, Eric did a pretty good job taking all their arguments apart.
So Dr. Duff was in this discussion too?
There he is.
There he is.
Yeah, he was talking about I think he called it the Pompeii, basically, where all these trees and other plants entombed in volcanic ash preserve coal layers. And
that's cool.
And he made the argument that from pollen in those layers, there were just ferns and lichophyte non-flowering plants, and he's like, why, if flowers were somewhere on the earth at that time, pre-flood world, why isn't there any pollen in these layers? Essentially, because pollen gets so.
Because God did not will it so.
I suppose.
The pollen ran faster than the dinosaurs, so the pollen wasn't in those layers. So,
well, the point that like what you do see in these layers are like fern spores, for example, from non-flowering plants, and yet you don't see any pollen, and there a known mechanism that can
separate those two,
separate the spores without having both of them. So. Kind of
but it's probably something science hasn't discovered yet. Some separation mechanism. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, they're part about the dinosaurs. The dinosaur tracks that they find are the dinosaurs running from the flood.
Yeah.
and they run in different groups, right? It's like, okay, guys, now we're gonna have the little dinosaurs, or this particular group of dinosaurs take off, and then 5 minutes later, it's like, okay, they shoot another gun off, and the other group of dinosaurs takes off, and that's why they're on different layers, right? Because they have a.
And it isn't like they just did it arbitrarily, like not based on size or anything.
Yeah,
a pretty wide range of size dinosaurs in each of these layers. So
it was based on clicks, on kinds, like meta kinds, right? like some dinosaurs were, they kind of like Trump, and some of the other dinosaurs didn't, and they
It's
ended
based
up
on
different.
popularity at the time.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, yeah, amazing. Yeah,
Like,
and then
who's gonna get first?
I love when the elephant jumped off the ark and ran around the world to, you know, North America, and then evolved into mammoths because he got cold,
And
like
survived
really fast. I mean, just
Egyptian
happened.
times on
Yeah,
some of the islands.
yeah, because of what creative diversity or
Yeah.
whatever the hell it is. Yeah. Anyway.
Hancock actually made a really good video explaining why designed or created heterozygosity is just
Yeah,
root level make any sense. So
right.
I
That was it.
employ everyone to go watch that.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, and is that the one that I said everybody should just shut the fuck up and listen to Zach? He did this one
I
video
might
that
not have
was
been
so
there for
incredible.
that one.
It was so incredible. It was amazing. It just explained everything so well, but it was very technical, and it was something that I would have to watch 4 times, and get my Pop Gen books out again. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh,
But like the comedy pretty simple to understand. It was just kind of putting it all together.
Creation Myths yesterday did a thing with what was his name? Paul Price?
Yep, on genetic entropy.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did a really, really good job, but this Paul Price just had nothing. I mean, he held him to task on this Kimura diagram, which Kimura basically made up for his model. And he was
And then
like, no, it's
kind of
empirical.
squeezed his way out of onto something else.
Yeah, and he used Ira Walker as his go-to because he'd been an email. I'd like to read the actual emails that he had in exchange with him to see what the hell they actually said. But yeah, that is really good. I got to
Very
dig
end
that.
of it, Paul basically threw what I interpret as a kind of a hissy fit because he started doing the whole apologetics thing on Dr. Dan.
Yeah, and Paul Price is an English teacher. I mean,
Really?
what? Yeah, he teaches English. He doesn't have any scientific background at all. He admitted it at the very beginning. I've seen him on papers and stuff with Sanford, I think. It's like, what the hell?
Well, I think one of the highlights of that discussion, the point where he admitted that they can't quantify information, still decreases anyway.
Yeah, but he got
Like
but
you
every
said.
time, yeah, every time Dr. Dan mentioned that you admit you can't quantify information, he got this kind of twisted, sour look on his face, like, oh God, I really don't want to say that out loud again. It's like I want to get fired. Oh my God. Yeah, and he's information. It's like words and paragraphs. It's like, no, it doesn't work like words and paragraph.
Yeah. Well, I think actually at one
Dumb.
point in the conversation, like PZ Myers was chat, and he made a real observation. Dan was talking about back mutations, nucleotide substitutions at one point, and then Paul talked about information as if it was in terms of the picture, in terms of actions and all that, and PZ was like, so information is about words and paragraphs, and I thought that was a really note there.
Yep. I'm gonna put the
Paraphrasing. Yeah.
I'm gonna link this.
That was definitely a good conversation.
Yeah. I'll link
Oh
this.
yeah, and this discussion about that body was pretty interesting.
Yep. Let's see. I want to dig into the what he was talking about with what is his name? Ira Walker, I think is the name.
Yeah.
The concatenated. Yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit and find out where he got that from. Scott left? Scott had something happened.
He had some tech issues.
Well, Scott also has to be going to his grandkids to hang out with his grandkids pretty soon, in about an hour. So anyway, What else you got?
Well, I was gonna go over that stuff. Coming up on an hour here. Maybe I'll just cover it in more detail.
Yeah,
I don't want to really rush through it.
Put together a presentation and send
Yeah.
me any links you have to any talks you had about it that are pertinent, so I can get the transcripts and get the bookmarks and all that.
Well, I haven't had any formal discussions. Some kind of
Okay.
comments I've
So
put in places and not to me yet, so I feel like I should make it more public.
well, send me your stuff because, like I say, I'm digging deep into BioPython and
Okay.
the NCBI database, and there are 169,830 cytochrome C genes in the database. The one I'm dealing with, I think there's only about 5,000 DDX11s. But so there's a lot of stuff here. But if you send me any links, I'll do a little research on top of that, and we can get together. So
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, just message me back and forth or email me stuff and let me know what you're going to present, and maybe I can do some background because I'd like to.
Does your thing happen to have amino acid sequence information by any?
Oh hell yeah, they all do.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that'd be something together. That's kind of central to my argument.
Yeah, let's see if I just search for human organism, that'll pare it down a bit. But yeah, I can pull those sequences and stuff, and I'm working on software to make all that easier. But it is very difficult. You gotta basically you use Entres and use something called BioPython, and you pull up these records and you get these IDs, and you got to parse the records and so it's a bit of work, but I would love to cut my teeth on a project. So if you give me some information, we'll put something together within the next couple of weeks. How about that?
Yeah, I'll keep in touch.
Cool, that'll be good.
We'll find an open point in both our schedules.
Yep, and I can test my Python prowess that I've been working on.
Sounds good.
Oh my God, I've got a diagram. It's holy shit, it's something else of how all the databases hook up and how you get from one database to another. Unfortunately, they all have their own prefixes, they all have their own format, and it is nuts, but
that's probably it.
But anyway, I can pull up the translated the translates basically of all those genes and the genes themselves. And what I'm working on now is searching out the exact location in the chromosome of all the exons and the introns, and I want to be able to pull them out and do blast on them and find, like, particularly the introns. I'm very interested in that. I want to see how conserved introns are compared to exons and all that. So.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yep, and the stuff I'm working on with DDX11 and the fusion site of chromosome 2 is kind of cool because I got a funny feeling that maybe nobody else has done what I'm trying to do. Because the genome
is... Yeah, you kind of arguments to that to bed, essentially.
Yeah, the genome is... Yeah. The genome is so big that anything you choose, any gene you choose to research, there's a goddamn good chance that nobody on Earth has ever done it before, because it is that big and there's that information.
A whole deep dive into it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like finding a new continent that we haven't explored yet, right? And no man has gone there before, and you'll find wild savages that shoot you with arrows. Maybe I don't know. I guess savage isn't politically correct anymore. What should I call them? Indigenous people.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Indigenous people that kill you with arrows. That actually happened to a guy down in South America. Did you hear about that?
Ooh.
He went and contacted. He went and contacted a tribe that didn't want to be contacted, and he got out of his canoe on the shore and they killed him.
Oh, you're talking about that guy? I think he's around Indonesia. It's around Indonesia. It's just this. I can't think of I can't remember the name of the island. I saw a documentary about it earlier. It was just, it's just total arrogance of a
Yeah.
young white Christian male from America.
Yeah, and he lands on the shore and they shot him with a bunch of arrows and killed him.
Total sense of entitlement. The guy knew it would happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it could happen. He just wanted to go out a martyr, or maybe he thought somehow he would be the one
I don't
to
know.
be the Apostle Paul for that island.
If I ever get the urge to go out a martyr, I'm going to go somewhere where they shoot me with a gun, not an arrow.
Yeah.
My choice. Anyway. Grassman Chronicles moved to its own channel, by the way. Breaking news. Okay. Let's go ahead and put that in the description.
Yeah, and I hope that all we ever do is talk about Bigfoot and never find Bigfoot.
Oh my, the Grassman Chronicles. I will put
Bigfoot deserves not to be found.
Bigfoot doesn't want to be found. It's like those aliens. Those aliens traveled thousands of light years, but they don't want us to see them.
We should have never found North America.
Yep. Oh, it's got its own channel now. How about that stuff? That's pretty cool. Okay, it's in the description. I'm about to save it, my friends. You will find wonderful things in my description if you choose to look. And people, come on, put some comments on my videos. That helps the algorithm.
Yes, please help the channel grow.
Even if your comment is get rid of that Scott guy, please put things in the comment section.
And that speed guy, nobody wants to listen to that asshole.
Positive
Yeah, just keep
or
Andrew on
negative.
here.
Yeah, high school dropout that burned his brain out on drugs and alcohol. That's what I am. I want to do more on consciousness, and I'm trying to get Josh Rasmussen to come and talk to me. I
need to read more of my book on philosophy of the mind.
Yeah, that too.
For some reason, I'm having trouble finding traction on it.
But I have to stick with my main goal is wrecking my brain on bioinformatics every day. So, because I've delved into it a number of times in the past, and then I forget half of the links that I found. But I have like a huge diagram now with arrows pointing from one thing to another, and I've got it all. I've got it all in my hand. I can just squeeze the lemon now. And anyway, so
make that lemonade.
Make that lemonade. Can we shoot her an ad?
Yep, sounds good.
I believe we can. Oh, there's
Okay.
Dave. Hey, Dave. I don't know if I might have been saying hello to Look at the Trees this whole time instead of the Grassman Chronicles. I mean, because, so sorry, Trees, if I mistook you for Dave earlier.
All hail the Grassman, and here is
All hail the Grassman.
Chronicles.
Leave Bigfoot alone, folks.
Yeah.
Because the second we find Bigfoot, Bigfoot's dead.
Yep.
As
Yeah.
a species.
Yeah, they'll put a suit and tie on him and get him on talk shows. And, it's got to be horrible. Bill Maher will interview him. Yep.
He'll become a Trumpster.
Maybe. Probably is a Trumpster. Yeah. Okay, guys. We're going to shoot her in the head.
Let's do that.
For being here.
Yeah, thanks. I hope that was interesting, that video and what we talked about. So, okay. Goodbye, cruel world.